Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to another fantastic episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well, hope you're good, as per usual. Before we get into today's topic and today's review, we're going to do a bit of housekeeping. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to be kept up to date on everything and anything that I am doing. Also, if you listen to this podcast on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps me out immensely. My goal is before Christmas, well, hopefully before the end of the year, I reach 100 subs. I'm currently at 90 subs because somebody unsubscribed, so I need 10 more people. That's all I need. And then we're at 100, and then I can be happy. Then I'll stop moaning about it. So if you listen on YouTube and you haven't already, please drop a like button. And if you have already subscribed, make sure you ring that bell to keep up to date on all notifications whenever I release an episode. Right, so today's topic, we're going to be looking at Blue Sky Studios again. Specifically today, we did Ice Age 3 a week or two ago, depends on when this episode comes out. But today was going to be the continuation on my Blue Sky Studios series. This is a series that I've been doing since season 1 of the podcast, where I look back at the incredible short life of the animation studios, Blue Sky Studios, of all their movies that they did: Ice Age, Robots, Ferdinand. They mostly just did Ice Age, but they did like the Peanuts movie, and they did Spies. I think they did Spies in Disguise, and they did Rio 2, Epic. Basically, yeah, they mostly just did Ice Age, really. Oh, and Horton Is a Who, and I really, really like Horton Is a Who. So today we're going to be looking at Rio, which came out in, when was the release date? March the 22nd, 2011. I've never seen this movie. I've never seen it. I've seen bits, I've seen parts whenever it's on TV, but I've never actually sat down and watched it all the way through. So this would be the first time for me. I don't really know much about the story, much about the plot. So I am sort of looking forward to going into this one. This will be one of those sort of introductions that I do for this series, where generally it'll probably be the shortest introduction because I really don't have any much to say other than I know it's about blue macaws, and that's it, and that they might be extinct. I think they're extinct. I'm sure I read an article about it that they were extinct. I'll research it quickly and I'll edit it in near the end if I have, near the end of the introduction, if I have. But that's all I really know about it, is that, you know, the Rio movie came out and then the sequel came out a couple of years later, and then there was a news article saying, oh, it's really, really nice to see them now that there's none left in the wild. And that's all I really remember about this movie. So it's a bit bleak, but I'm sure this movie will, you know, bring up the spirits, bring up the hopium that we have. So I'm going to give a brief sort of plot synopsis of what is actually going on in this film, for anybody who hasn't watched it like me, or for people who have seen it but it's been a long while. This bit's for you. So, in Moose Lake, Minnesota, a crate containing a male Sphinx macaw hatchling that was smuggled out of Brazil falls from a truck and is found by a child named Linda Gunderson, who names him Blue. 50 years later, Blue is highly domesticated and unable to fly, and is frequently ridiculed by the Canadian geese that come by Linda's bookstore. Ornithologist, yeah? I feel like I'm pronouncing that word wrong. Tulio Monterio invites Blue and Linda to Rio de Janeiro for Blue, the last known male of his species, to mate with the last known female. At Tulio's aviary in Rio, Blue meets his prospective mate, the fiercely independent Jewel, who longs to flee back to the wilderness. The macaws are captured by orphan boy Fernando and sulfur-crested cockatoo Nigel, who both work for a smuggler gang led by Marcel, who wants to leave the country quickly to sell Blue and Jewel on the black market. So that's all I really, that's going to give you a good sort of idea of what's going on in the story. As the voice cast, we have Jesse Eisenberg as Blue, the male McCall. You've got Anne Hathaway as Jewel, a female Sinks McCall. Will.i.am as Pedro, a red-crested cardinal. Jamie Foxx as Nico, a blue canary. George Lopez as Raphael, a romantic, wise, and aromatic toucan, Toko toucan. Tracy Morgan as Louise, a bulldog. Jamie Clement as Nigel, a sadistic, sulphur-crested cockatoo. Leslie Mann as Linda Gunderson. Rodrigo Santora as Dr. Tulio Montorio. Jake T. Austin as Fernando. Carlos Ponce as Marcel. David Veneri as Armando. Jeffrey Garcia as Tipa. Jane Lynch as Alice, a Canadian goose. Wanda Sykes as Chloe, also a Canadian goose. Babel Gotero as Via. Kill Bill Toucan. Bernardo Del Pula as Kipo. And Francisco Ramos as lead marmoset. This is a very animal sort of focus film, this is. Which, as I would imagine, because, you've got two birds and yeah, animals talking. It's great. As for the production, Zendaya first had the idea for the film in 2005, involving a penguin being washed up on the beaches of Panama. It was changed to the current story after he learned of Happy Feet and Surf's Up, two other films involving penguins being produced. He pitched the idea to Chris Wedge at Blue Sky Studios in 2006. Saldana showed the animators maps and books with geographic landmarks and measurements from which they built a digital version of Rio. Later, a group of artists from the company visited Rio to see the various story locations. The animators also met with an expert on macaws at the Bronx Zoo to gain insight into their movement and personalities. Saldana himself is a Brazilian from Rio de Janeiro. Such elements of Brazilian culture and landmarks were also influenced from Saldana growing up in Brazil. The lead voice actors were approached in 2009. Jermaine Clement was approached to do the film after seeing test shots of his character Nigel doing a speech from Flight of the Conchords, which was done prior to the script being finalised. Neil Patrick Harris was supposed to voice Blue, but after other commitments outside production, he was later replaced by Jesse Eisenberg. Eisenberg was asked during the filming of The Social Network if he would do voice recording on the weekends, and he agreed after reading the script, saying, "It was the perfect antidote to get out of the mindset of my character in The Social Network, who was so severe and in some ways so joyless." For music, they brought on board Sergio Mendes to act as music guru and online living library. He, in turn, was able to reach out to artists such as Will.i.am and Calabrinas Brown to provide music for the film. Eisenberg and Anne Hathaway, who voiced Jewel, had acted together before when both were still teenagers when they played siblings in the short-lived 1999 TV show Get Real. Hathaway stated in an interview that she didn't see Eisenberg during production of Rio except socially throughout the process, but that she was very happy for all of his success and to be working with him again. So production went quite well, quite quickly. It's kind of interesting how it started off that they were going to have penguins, and how they had to change it because of Happy Feet and Surf's Up. Yeah, it was something about 2000, 2005, 2006, 2007, around those times. There was a lot of penguin movies. I'm not against it. I like penguins, but yeah, there was a lot of penguin movies. Surf's Up, the best one. I like Happy Feet, but I just love Surf's Up. It's one of my favorite. One day maybe I'll go and I'll review that movie. But for now, we're talking about McCalls, so we're not going to get lost on those. So that's a given idea of the production. I've just been able to find this bit's the edited part, by the way. Originally ended there, but I managed to edit this in. I did find an article by CBS News, which, by the way, don't read everything you hear on the news. Just saying. But this is one of the only articles that I could find about it. It's from September 2018. And the headline is Blue Macaw Parrot that inspired Rio is now officially extinct in the wild. A new study by BirdLife International, a global partnership of conservation organisers that strive to conserve bird species around the world, reveals that in recent years, several bird species have lost their fight for survival, and sadly, one of those species is the beautiful Sphinx macaw, which, by the way, Google what these parrots, these macaws look like. They're absolutely gorgeous, so majestic. The species is now considered extinct in the wild, although some of the birds survive in breeding programs. While the vast majority of bird extinctions in recent centuries have occurred on isolated islands, 5 of the 8 highlighted by this study occurred in South America, 4 in Brazil alone, a tragic statement on the impact of deforestation in that part of the world. Today, in the face of human-caused climate change, the rampant expansion of urban areas, and increasingly extreme weather events, many of the world's animals are truly in an adapt or die situation. So that was one article that I found, but it's not all lost. I also found another article, also by, is it CBS as well? No, this is another. It might be PBS. It's the Peacock thing for ABC News. I think. Oh, I don't know, from America. It was the only, again, another article that I could find. NBC, that was it. From July 2022, so last year. And it's basically blue parrot species thought to be extinct is making a comeback in Brazil. The Sphinx macaw, a blue parrot that disappeared from the wild in 20 years ago, is making a resurgence in Brazil thanks to a rescue project. So it's not all lost. I was right. There was an article, a few articles out saying that the blue macaw had gone extinct by 2018. But as of last year, of the article I found, they are currently being brought back into the wild. So all hope is not lost for these beautiful, majestic creatures. Hopefully there is a chance I will get to see one, either in the wild or in a zoo somewhere, because they are absolutely gorgeous. I generally recommend you Google the Sphinx macaw bird. It's the blue is just, it's like ocean blue. It's just gorgeous. But yeah, so that is, I think, to basically say, look, it's only going to be a short one. This introduction wasn't going to be as long as the Ice Age ones or Robots or Horton is a Who, any of those. This is going to be sort of a very, very short one. But yeah, all hope's not lost. The macaws are coming back, thank God. And with that, I've got a new sort of sense of hope and a more sort of happy stunts inside me, a happy presence sort of growing. So on to the review. I'm going to go and watch the movie now, and when I come back, you're going to hear my thoughts and feelings. So, on to the review. Her name is Rio, and she dances on the sand. I can't sing anymore out of fear of getting banned. So, I mean, I'm in good spirits. I've just finished watching Rio, and overall, I really, really like it. You know, I've never seen, like I said in the introduction, I've never really seen this movie before, but I enjoyed it. I probably won't have a lot to say about this film as I do with like Horton is Who, Ice Age, Robots, the like. Um, but it's a nice little neat love sort of story, really. Um, there's a lot of musical moments in it. There's a lot of moments where a lot of the characters, you've got Will.i.am in it, for example. You get characters that will have their moments where they sing and they dance, and it's a really great sort of way of. It's a fantastic representation of not just sort of the Rio as a beautiful place. I'd love to go to Rio and see all the sights there because it does. It shows all the fantastic sights of Rio. You see, I can't remember the name of it, but the giant, is it God or Jesus sort of statue where he's got his arms out. You see that. You see all for the favelas and the city and the beaches and the hills and people who go there to do the parasailing, which I've always wanted to try, that sort of thing. You know, so it's fantastic representation of not just sort of Rio as a city, which is gorgeous, but also as a culture. And one thing that, again, another thing I'd love to do, which one of the sort of key parts of this film, is that during the summertime in Rio, they have their festival, their carnival, which is where they sort of do. It's like a big party. It's like a big celebration of life, and the movie's kind of tied around that a bit. Well, it's not the main focus, but it's there. And there is a lot of musical moments. There's a lot of samba. There's a lot of dancing. It is very sort of. Even me, I'm just sitting there on my own, just watching the film on the TV, and I'm just like jigging back and forth, like, ooh, I like this, like a bit of samba. You don't get much music like that here in the UK. It's very sort of, well, not as sort of samba-ish, shall we say, not as where you want to get up and just shake your booty and jiggle a bit. Um, so I loved it for that. But yeah, it was a fantastic little story. You have Blue, who is a blue macaw, who the movie starts off. He is a little bird in the nest. All the other birds have just been born, and they're flying around. And it's lovely, it's beautiful, and they're having celebrations. They're doing the samba in the sky, and it's really lovely and singing music. And then sadly, poachers come, take everybody out. Blue gets scared. He falls out of the nest. He falls to the ground. He never really learnt to fly. And then, as he wakes up on the ground, a poacher comes, takes him away, puts him in a plane as well with all the other birds, ships him off to America, and then I would imagine sells them to some sort of private exotic animal sort of person. On the way, he's being ferried. He falls off a truck, finds himself in Minnesota. That's not how Minnesota people. Please don't. If you're from Minnesota, please don't hurt me. That's just whenever I hear that word Minnesota, I have to feel like I feel the need to do a Minnesota accent. I do apologize. I've just done it twice and I've offended people twice. I do apologize. But he finds himself in Minnesota, which is completely out of his wheelhouse because Minnesota, especially in the film, is all snowy and very, very cold, unlike Rio, where it's very warm, very vibrant, very sort of bright and colourful. Um, but he finds himself there and he meets a little girl and she takes him in and she kind of domesticates him, really. He never really needs to learn to fly because he's either always on her shoulder or she has pegs and things like that around the house where he can sort of climb up and that sort of thing. So he never learns to fly. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes and he is kind of, I think it's an ornithologist. I think I'm butchering the name. But basically, somebody who studies birds. He comes along. He's like, "Look, Blue is the last of his kind. Um, please come down to Rio. We've got the last female of his kind. Please, 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 please. Like, we need you to save the species." So, Blue and his keeper, she takes him down to Rio, and it's that's kind of where the story begins. It's this romance between Blue and the other macaw. How Blue tries his best to kind of woo her, but also the fact of she doesn't want to be wooed. She's very much the fact of I don't want to be anybody's pet. I don't want to be anybody's love interest. I don't want to be in this cage. And she keeps trying to escape. And she keeps trying to get away from Blue. Blue is very much like that he doesn't want to be there in the first place. He's like, I don't want to be here, but I can't get out because I can't fly. And it's very much the fact of he's got all these other birds flying, and he's just like, nope, can't fly. That kind of adds the comedy to it. Um, but it's a nice little film. It's about an hour and 41 minutes long, maybe a bit too long. There were times where I kept looking at my phone, not because I was bored, just because the fact of it felt like it was going a bit longer than it needed to be. Me personally, I guess if you've got kids, it'd be any different. Um, but overall, yeah, I'd say it's a good film because there's not really much to say for this movie, other than it's lovely to see that Blue Sky Studios not just tried something out and branched out, but it just shows that they 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 can tell a beautiful story. They have a story here between two macaws. And there were many moments where I was going, ah, at the end, again, a bit of spoilers, but it's kind of obvious. By the end of the movie, Blue learns to fly, and it's very lovely. And there are moments where they find it like they get chained together when they get kidnapped by poachers. And obviously, because Blue can't fly, and the girl the girl macaw that he's attached to, she can fly, and she's trying to escape, and they're stuck together, so they kind of have to walk everywhere. When they do finally sort of break the chain and get free of each other, she's off flying around, celebrating. All the other birds that are with them all sort of celebrating and singing. Let's go to Carnival, let's celebrate. And Blue is just there on the floor, looking up at them, being like, I wish I could join in, but I can't. It's kind of like he has a fear of heights. It's never implied, but every time he goes to run and jump off a cliff to learn to fly, he's like, no, no, stop, stop, and he'll claw or dig his beak into the ground or something like that. He'll always refuse to do it. But it's a very much a kind of a boy meets girl, but girl's not interested sort of story. But she eventually does get interested. But also you have kind coming of age sort of stories where he's coming into his wings, pun intended. He's coming into his stride. He's becoming sort of a grown up sort of macaw now that he has to kind of be spread his wings again, pun intended, and fly and leave the nest again, pun intended. You can do a lot of puns with birds. It's fantastic. But yeah, it's a very lovely movie. Do I recommend it? Yeah. If you've got kids, most likely. It's not probably one that you'll enjoy as much if you was an adult. Unlike the robots or Ice Age or Horton Hears a Who, that sort of thing. There's no real sort of underlying tones. There's no underlying message. Not like the environment of, or again, Dr. Zeus. You are a who, no matter how small you are. Everybody matters and that sort of thing. There's no underlying message that I could find other than just, you know, be brave, be open with yourself, and take that leap. Take that leap of faith. And if you find somebody that you love, that you want to be with, that you feel there's connection with, tell them, make it very sort of obvious, and be very open. Like, I love you. I want to be together. Now you might get rejected, and that sucks, but you never know if you don't try. You've got to put yourself out there. You got to be brave. You got to be courageous. Be like Blue. You know, finally have the courage to fly and to kiss the girl. And he does. He flies, he kisses the girl, and they live happily ever after. And I basically just summed up an hour and 41 minutes of a movie. That being said, it's still worth watching. Just know that, it's no sort of Horton Hears a Who or Ice Age or Robots or Peanuts or anything like that, but it's still very, very enjoyable. So if you have kids, I do recommend it. They did make a Rio 2. I haven't watched that one. So I can't sort of comment on it, but I think the next movie after this one, actually, I'm on Disney Plus right now, so let me have a check. I think it's an Ice Age film. So let me go to this thing. Let me search Ice Age. Ice Age. ICE. Oh, ICUP. Funny. I know I'm a child. Leave me alone. Ice Age. There we are. Right. So I think the next one is Ice Age Continental Drift, which, if you heard my Ice Age 3 review, you can kind of tell that I'm kind of getting a bit tired of Ice Age now. So Ice Age 3, Ice Age 4, sorry, even I'm getting lost. Ice Age 4, Continental Drift, 2012. So that is the next one in the Blue Sky Studios series. So yeah, that is my review of Rio. Again, it was only a short one. I enjoyed it overall. I recommend it if you have kids, and if you don't, probably won't enjoy it as much, but it's still fun. So, mate, if you're interested in anything and everything else that I am doing with the podcast or the Nerdstalgic podcast or me in general, you can follow me at Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. Or if you would be interested, I'm also on YouTube, where you can like, comment, and subscribe and all that jazz. It helps me out immensely. You can find the Nerdstalgic podcast everywhere and anywhere that you'll find podcasts, apart from Apple Podcasts. I'm not on there. Also, you can find me on Audible. So if you've already listened to an audiobook, you can find me on there. And that's about it, really. So, thank you very, very much for listening to my short review of Rio. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hope you did. I have been your host, Luke the Human. Thank you very, very much for listening. I appreciate you greatly, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.